All right, guys, welcome to the Closing Call Podcast with your host, Jimmy Henderson. That's me, and we have an amazing guest with us today, a wonderful friend of mine, Mr. James Like from Revolution Real Estate. How are you doing today?
Hey, great, man. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. So James is a big deal. I'm just going to tell you, I know he's going to be humble, but I'm going to tell you. So I've known James for several years. We were blessed enough to kind of cross paths. I remember I should have told you this in prep because now you're probably gonna remember this. I had this buyer, potential buyer, never turned into anything, who reached out to me through I don't even remember, online. She called me. I don't remember. She found me. I was probably a Zillow lead or something, and she's like, "I'm moving to Texas from California or somewhere, right?" Mm-hmm. But this was before people were coming in droves from California, and she says, "I work for ABC Bank." It was a big name bank. And she says, "I'm going through like assistant manager training or something, and I'm going to be traveling in. I'm going to be coming in." And I said, "Okay." She says, "So I want to get a house." And I said, "Well, let me know when you're in the area." This was before, at least I wasn't doing FaceTime videos. That wasn't a thing back then. This has probably been 6-7 years ago, whatever it was. And so she says, I'm coming in, but I need a ride from the airport." And I thought, man, this already is sounding funny, right? And she said, "I need a ride from the airport." And I said, well, I was hungry as can be, right? Brand new agent. I'm like, I'll do anything to sell a house. So I told my wife, I told Linda, I said, "Hey, this is the situation. I just want you to know." And she's like, "That's kind of weird, but yeah, if it'll sell a house, go for it." So I had to pick this young lady up, and she was only here for the day, right? Mm-hmm. So she came in at like 6:30 in the morning. And so DFW Airport was like 45 minutes from my house. So I had to go pick her up. And then she's like, "This is my budget." I don't even think I had a pre-qual. Maybe I did. I don't know. And I said, well, let's go look at some houses. And so one of the houses that we looked at was your house. It was one of the houses that you had. And we made an offer on it. And I don't remember if we went under contract or if we just negotiated back and forth. And I remember as we're driving around looking at houses, this young lady like fell asleep in my car, right? And it was a really weird situation. And it was really weird. Anyhow, I took her back to the airport, and I maybe heard from her once or twice. Her pre-qualification letter fell apart, and it was so funny. It was the weirdest thing. But then when I actually met you in person, it had been several months later that I met you in person. You're like, "Oh yeah, you remember the whatever street name that the deal was, Roundfellow, whatever." You're like, "Oh, the Roundfellow deal." And I was like, "That was James Like. That's how I knew you." And I thought that was amazing that you still remembered that.
Dude,
so
I have some of the most random remembrances when it comes to these deals. Somebody asked me the other day, they're like, "How in the world do you know what street that was?" It was some like random deal we did 15 years ago. And I don't know why. I wish I could remember greater things than that. Yep. I forget all the cool things. Yeah. And then all the stupid stuff like that I seem to remember. But
I get it. So I'm trying to rebuild my database right now because I've been horrible at keeping up with this kind of stuff. And so I've got my assistant together, and I said, "Look, go find all the houses that I've ever sold." Mm-hmm. And check the tax records. And there's a way to check it in the MLS and say, "Look, the people that bought the house when I sold it, do they still live there?" Yeah. And if they do, then hey, that's my customer, and let me reach out to them and grab their information again so I can, communicate with them. And then if they don't, then that means that customer sold the house without me, and I guess I wasn't as cool as I thought I was. But I remember, so as I'm writing these letters, because I'm writing these letters to these customers, and I'm remembering them, and I'm remembering the house. And so like there was one customer who had come in from Florida, and she says, "What's the deal with people in Texas having cross walls?" And I was, what do you mean? And I noticed several of the houses that we saw on one wall of the house, they would just have a whole bunch of crosses all over it. And I had never really paid attention to that before. And I said, "No, that's not a thing." And then we keep looking at houses, and I was like, yeah, maybe that is a thing. Maybe people in Texas like to put crosses all over their walls. So as I was writing this letter to her, it was her and her husband, I said, "Hey, how are you coming with your Texas crosswalk?" Who knows? The things that we remember in real estate.
She adapted that crosswalk, huh?
Yeah, well, who knows? We'll see if she does. So you are Revolution Real Estate, and you've got some other things that are under that umbrella. So tell me a little bit about your experience in real estate, what that looks like right now as far as in the real estate bubble.
Okay. I think my favorite story to share is how I even got into real estate to begin with.
Okay.
And there was an infomercial in the 90s.
Okay.
And there was a guy named Carlton Sheets. Have you ever heard of him?
Yeah.
Remember buy a house with no money down, no credit or whatever. So I was working for a grocery store, and back then there was no internet in 94, 95. No internet, no way to get anything other than stay up late. And you could call an 800 number, and you could send a check or money order. And so
sometimes they would do COD. I remember.
Oh that. Yeah, COD, cash on delivery, man. That was pretty cool. And so he had a product that was like $499 to learn how to do investing. And man, I was making like $4.25 an hour, $4.25, going to high school, working at the grocery store there in Alvarado. And anyways, I saved all my money, took weeks, saved it all, sent off for it, wrote him a letter, did whatever, made the phone call, whatever it was. And they mailed me the product to me, and I began to start learning about it. And I grew up in a single wide trailer with add-ons. And nothing wrong with that.
You had add-ons?
Man, we were
you were a big deal.
We even had an upstairs add-on. So my dad
Never mind,
went
you
higher.
crossed over.
Yeah, he went higher. And
that's great.
He was a great construction guy, and so the house is still there. It's still functioning, and it's in okay shape. But nevertheless, that's how I grew up. So I didn't come from a money background. I had no clue what real estate even was. I just remember seeing that guy and seeing him sitting out on the beach somewhere, and I wanted to be a part of it.
Yeah.
So I bought that product, and then I would spend the next 6-7 years kind of chasing different goals and nursing school, all kinds of stuff. And then
just trying to find where you fit in this world.
Find where I fit in, man. And I remember I got married in 2001, and I put underneath our house, I was living in Missouri, underneath our house, I stored a whole bunch of books and things that I had. And we got
Joplin?
In Joplin.
Okay. How did I know that?
That's where the connection comes from. And so it flooded. And it ruined everything in there. Well, that Carlton Sheets program was in there.
Okay.
So I remembered him, and I knew I wanted to get back into real estate again. I started seeing some other people that were in it. So I went back, and by that time we had internet. So I go online and I ordered his product again.
Okay.
And so I still have that one. Actually, it's in my garage at home, and I still have it. And I just started learning. I pulled up, started learning, and I knew that if I could build passive income. And at the time, I wanted to be a pastor.
Okay.
And so I seen my pastor be influenced by people that had money and make decisions based on money. Yeah. Well, we can't really do this project, or we can't do this outreach because we don't have enough money. And I said, I never want to be that guy.
Right.
I never want to be controlled by anyone. I don't know why I thought of that as a young kid, but that's exactly what I was thinking whenever I started diving in. I want to be a missionary, a pastor, but I want to be able to support myself. Right. And never rely on anybody else, begging for money or whatnot. And so I went back into it again, and I started learning the program, and I started taking action. Went to a chicken wing place. It's still open, but they moved locations because their building fell in. Okay. And I'm telling you, I sit at the table looking at the outside. You could see the crack in the wall there. The Hackett Hot Wings there in Joplin, and I bought my first house on a napkin. Literally pulled a napkin out, bought a first house. I don't remember the numbers. Sadly, I don't have the napkin.
And the business deals that have been done on napkins would blow your mind.
It would blow your mind. Yeah. And why I don't remember that is another one of those things. I remember something goofy like you and I doing that deal together, but I don't remember that. So I think the numbers were somewhere around $3,000 or $5,000. And then I wholesaled it and made like $3,000.
Yeah.
And I never even went inside the house. I looked at it on the outside. It was one of those leaners. And I bought it on that napkin, and then I went to a Thrifty Nickel magazine. Remember Thrifty Nickel back in the day? And so I went to that Thrifty Nickel, and I put it in there, put an ad. It was like $30. Put an ad in there for a week. A guy called me, wrote me a check, and gave it to me. And I went down to the title company because I didn't know what to do. Went down to the title company. They finished it off. I made like $3,000 or $4,000 when it was said and done, and I was off to the races after that.
The birth of an empire.
It is. And so in 2005 or 6, I moved to Texas, and the first thing I did was get my license.
Okay.
So I grew up in Texas, but I'd moved away for college.
Right.
Came back. My mom got sick. Come back to help take care of her. In 2006, became licensed, and I've been licensed the last 17 years now. I'm a licensed broker. So I have Revolution Real Estate, which is a brokerage. We've done maybe over 600-700 houses. Okay. A lot of it has slowed down over the past few years. Biggest year we had was 2017, 16 or 17, and we did 152 homes.
Oh, all right.
I did 89 by myself.
Yeah.
That was a burnout year for me.
I know the feeling.
89 houses. I mean, that's a lot. And I'm sure you've done more than that. And there's other guys that have produced way more than that. But for me, in my processes and systems at the time, it was burnout mode.
No, that's huge. That 100%. That's a lot to do. Plus managing the other aspects of a team. So
totally other aspects. And so market crashes in 2008. I lost everything. Lost my marriage. And it's a whole nother story I won't share today, but went to take my life, and in a miraculous way, the Lord spared me from that. And again, that's a story for another day. But I got back on the right path, and I headed forward, and I had to figure out a way to build some passive income or some sustaining income. So I started Revolution Property Management. I started managing properties for other people. Had an amazing mentor, Harriet Hooper. She's passed now, but she was one of my greatest mentors. She gave me everything that I needed and helped me go through that. She taught me everything I needed to know about property management. Still managing to this day. I manage over 50 properties right now.
I didn't know that.
It's totally passive for me.
Sure.
It's in times of low income on the sales side, whenever I was experiencing the roller coaster of making a lot of money and then making very little money, that was always just an even kill. Mm-hmm. It paid my bills.
Yeah.
And it's always paid my bills. Matter of fact, this last week, I rented out another house because my assistant's on maternity leave. Mm-hmm. I got to do the leases again and do all that. So I figured out how to do it, even though I haven't done it in 5 or 6 years. So
yeah, that's always fun.
But property management.
Go back to your roots.
In 2018, I look back and I'm like, I have so many friends that I represented that were investors that I represented on the brokerage side that literally became millionaires from the 2008 market. And I started thinking to myself, like, I've literally, and I don't know any other way to say this, so I'm just going to say it plainly. If they have to edit it out, they can. But I pinned to myself for 3%.
Yeah.
For so many years, and yet my friends they were buying $40,000 houses that I would go walk. I would do the estimate on repairs. I would write the contract. I had a pre-signed contract, which is probably not legal at all. But anyways, I would submit 50 offers a week. We maybe get 2 of them. But I did all the legwork, and I made 3%. I made $1,200. Those same guys here the last 3 or 4 years have taken those $40,000 properties and sold them for $250,000 to $350,000 and became millionaires literally within one real estate season.
Yeah.
And I started looking at that and I'm like, what am I doing? Like, for me to I was selling $12 million at the time. 3% commission, that's $360,000 a year. It's pretty decent income.
It's pretty strong.
But if I made $360,000 income, it would take me, at my price point at that time, it would take me 60 transactions to be able to do that.
Yeah.
And then I had a friend, I was telling him about it, and I was trying to make this transition from being an agent to being an investor. And he would sit down and he goes, how much can you make on a flip? Because I was flipping a few at a time. How much can you make on a flip? And I said, I can average 30,000 a flip.
Yeah.
And so pretty easily, you know, and he said, all right, so if you want to make 360,000 and you make 30,000 a flip, that's 12 flips.
12 houses, right.
So he kept, and I don't know, it took me 3 months to overcome the mindset because I was so used to doing the same things every day, the consistency of sales.
Right.
I almost had this fear to make the switch. Finally, the summer of 2018, I made the switch. He kept going, 60 people or 12 deals.
Right.
60 engineers that are breaking everything down and busting your chops all the time.
We love those engineers.
Yeah, we definitely do. But for me, those are the things that drove me crazy.
Yeah.
Those are 60 people who feel like it's the biggest financial decision they're ever going to make, or you be your own customer and do 12 deals.
For 20% of the workload. Sure.
It took about 6 months. And this business, like we did that first probably 9 months, I did $1.2 million in flips. I was my own seller. I represented myself as a seller. I represented myself as a buyer. It was the easiest thing that I'd ever done.
Yeah.
Like, it was less stress. Like, I quit putting the suit jacket on. I wear what I'm wearing today, my fishing shirt.
A little jealous, to be honest.
But you know, I still love getting dressed up at certain occasions or whatever, but I didn't have to do it anymore.
Right.
So Revolution Homebuyers was born, and since then we flipped. I'm averaging about 48 to 60 properties a year, wholesale and flips. This year we're off to a little bit of a slow start. Obviously, I've made some changes and I've kind of scaled back a little bit, and I'm not taking risks. I'm not taking major risks.
Right.
Being very conservative, but we're making more per flip because of that.
Right.
Even because of the being conservative, getting the right offers and whatnot. So that was Revolution Home Buyers. I've had other businesses. I've had the Flippin' Dirty TV show on YouTube, which is a lot of fun to watch. We have several episodes that you can go look at on YouTube there.
Flippin' Dirty.
Flippin' Dirty. Yep. It's a play on words.
I've seen it. It's pretty neat. I like it. So let me ask you. Obviously, and I love that story. I did not know the background as far as where you came from, and how you got started in real estate. I'm curious. You said that you have the that course that you bought in your basement, or is it up?
It's in my garage. Yeah,
okay.
It's in a box.
Is it?
It's not going to flood.
It's not going to flood. Is it above like the water level, right? Okay. So you kind of mentioned, you'd always wanted to be a pastor. So I want to back up a little bit and the big question I want to put out there right now is what is your why? In other words, what's the reason that you do what you do? And a lot of times, if you ask someone, especially entrepreneurs and those who have that mindset, if you say, why do you do this? There's those canned answers I think that we've been trained to give out there, and a lot of speakers will say, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. It's all about money, right? They'll say, you're here to make more money. Well, money in and of itself is just it's a tool, if you will.
It's good for the good that money can do.
Yeah, that's it. But if you're not doing anything with it, and so at the end of the day, what is your why? If I had to ask you, tell me the reason that you do what you do, what is that answer?
So about 4 years ago, as I was getting ready to turn 40 years old, I began to do these exercises to pare down and figure out exactly what my big why was. I was starting to get to the point where I was reaching all the goals that I'd set forth in 2005 or 6.
Okay.
And because of that, I had no other future goals ahead of me. I didn't think about 25, 30 years ahead. Okay. I only thought 10 or 15 years ahead. And so I started accomplishing goals with no other dreams to come. So as I began to turn 40, the sobering thing of entering to your 40s, I did an exercise that pared me all the way down to what my big why is. And I'll tell you exactly what my big why is to be remembered. Everything that I do, I want to be remembered. When I go into a room and I meet people, I want to be remembered. It sounds super selfish, right? And there is probably a selfish piece behind that. But everything that I do, I want to be remembered. I want my life to mean something greater than what it does right now.
Okay.
Whenever I'm gone, when I'm dead and gone and I'm put into the ground, I want people to remember what I did whenever I was here for just that little dash that's in my, that's in between my birth and my death date. I want to be remembered. That is it. So, being a Christian, being a part of God's kingdom, the goal right now is to advance the kingdom in everything I do. And part of advancing the kingdom is continuing to be successful in business. Right. Because of the money piece. As long as I know and have the gift and the ability to go and make money. Yeah. Why not do that? Absolutely. Why not utilize that? And the more money that we can bring in, the more money I can give away. Yeah. And so me and my wife a couple of years ago, we started giving away more and more. So we did our 10% tithe, but then we started saying, we want to give 10% more on top of it. Right. Last year, I think we gave away 34% of our income. Praise the Lord. Which is awesome. I want to get to 90%. Yeah. Why? Because here's the thing, dude. I've had a lot of money in my wallet. I've worn some super nice clothes. I've driven some super nice cars. None of that stuff has ever fulfilled me. Right. What I'm doing now, and I know we're going to get into this a little bit, but what I'm doing right now is what's bringing fulfillment. Yeah. Giving money and helping those who cannot help themselves. There's more fulfillment in that than I've ever felt in my whole entire life. So
I'll tell you real quick, after this episode, I'm going to record another episode with one of my best friends in the world. His name is Saul David. And he has a ministry that he started recently. The Lord put it in his heart several years ago, and it's called Tithe Life. And it's essentially laymen, entrepreneurs, regular folk that can explain and share from personal experiences what living what we refer to as the tithe life actually is. You and I have talked about this. I completely right now remember. That's it. Yeah, the YMBAT. You must be a tither, right? We'll get into that. But a lot of people will listen to that and say that doesn't make sense. You don't give to get. That's contrary to the world's general philosophy. But Scripture tells us differently, right? That's God does a lot of things differently than what the world would tell us to do. And you find, because you play it out in your regular everyday life, that the more you give to the kingdom, what you're essentially doing when you prove your faithfulness to God is you're allowing yourself to be a channel through which God's blessings will flow. If you've got Joe, everyday Joe who's praying one day and says, Lord, I need your help. I financially, whatever it is, there's a financial need. I need to pay this bill, or I need my house payment, or I need, whatever it is, right? And he's praying sincerely, and the Lord says, I'm going to bless him. Well, that doesn't mean that God just drops a deposit into his account. I mean, if he does that, if you get a deposit into your account after you've been praying for it, you still need to call the bank and say there was a mistake. That wasn't just a blessing from God. But what God will do is he will use someone like you who says, I want to be a wise financial steward. I want to take what God gives me and I want to give back to the kingdom. And he will use you to fill that need in his life and be a blessing to him. So God says, boom, I can count on my servant James. He's proven to me that he's going to give and I can use him. So now God says, this is what we're going to do. We're going to take it and give it to James, and James is going to give it and he's going to continue to grow. So that's how we can follow the leading that we find in Scripture to give to get. Now, you're not getting for personal gain. The second you start to say, ooh, look what I'm doing, look what I have. And
everything I touch turns to gold.
That's it. Let's not pretend that we don't see those on business cards from time to time. Then you've short-circuited your blessing circuit, if you will. Yeah. So anyhow, so the Lord has proven in his life, because your faithfulness to say, look, God gives to me and I'm going to give to others. And then we see that go. So tell me what that looks like right now. Obviously, real estate has been a tool for the Lord to put blessings, financial blessings, I'm just going to call it what it is, into your life. Tell me what that looks like right now. What has that allowed you to do and get into right now? Because you mentioned, hey, I've kind of transitioned a little bit. Like I've taken a step back and we're being more conservative, but there's a reason for that. Tell me what that is.
Sure. So let me first say that I'm glad you didn't ask me to come on a podcast to give people the steps of how to be successful, because many people have surrounded themselves with me, and it's a weird dynamic. And I say this very humbly, but people have come to be in my circle because they see the success that we've been able to have. And I've never been the most consistent prospector. I've been consistent in all kinds of ways in the business, but business has just fallen into my lap. Mm-hmm. And people get around me and they want to be in my world because they think it's something special that they're going to learn and be able to grab.
Teach me the James-like program.
Teach me that. But man, I couldn't even write a book about my success because I've just been walking in favor all these years. Yep. And that's something that unless you've experienced God's favor, people don't understand that. Right. And once they get around you, they almost walk away disappointed because they're like, there's nothing special about that guy.
Guy's lucky.
Yeah, he's lucky. There's nothing special about this guy, because my good friend Chad Smith, I think Chad. I know Chad. Chad told me one time, he goes, James, do you want to know the keys to success, or do you want to know the real keys to my success? Mm-hmm. And he's very consistent and dogmatic in his approaches on everything that he does. But when he tells you, he gives a lot. And I'm giving his secret away here, but he'll sit there and show me, this is what I'm giving away. He was one of the bigger influences on me for me to say, look, I need to go beyond the 10%. I need to go beyond the 10% tithe given and make a bigger difference. And I'll never forget that from him. And so I'm glad you didn't ask me to do that, to take that approach. But yes, I have been in a transition mode. I have a goal for myself to get my passive income grown to a certain level. Mm-hmm. And it's the amount of money that I need every month for the rest of my life.
So you can sit on a beach somewhere, right?
Dude, I get so bored on a beach.
I hear you.
And there's so much I want to be able to tell you. And I know we're like so condensed for time, but let me tell you this. My wife and I, we've, just like your wife and you, we've been blessed to be able to just travel all over the world and go be a part of a whole bunch of things. A few years ago, I got partnered up with my pastor and my good friend, Pastor Troy Brewer. And Troy rescues little girls from human trafficking, from sex trafficking. And once he taught me that, once I learned what he was doing, and once I went behind, and I hope I don't ruin this for your travels, but once I went behind the veil, every place that has a resort has a veil. And behind that veil is some of the most atrocious sins against young women. And I'm talking young as in all the way down to babies. But we're rescuing girls from 8 to 18 right now, and even younger than that have been prostituted up to 40 times a day. And it's been that way for a very, very, very long time now. There's more slaves actually enslaved in the world right now than there has been slaves in the history of the world combined.
Wow.
And people don't realize that. They turn an ear to that. Mm-hmm. So to say that I'm going to go lay on a beach for a week, number one, I get bored.
Sure.
I'll be listening to podcasts, trying to do work or whatever. It's just the season of life that I'm in. But once I go behind the veil, once I went behind the veil and I seen what really takes place behind these resorts and different things, it changed the way that we travel. It changed. Now we will go to a resort. We will go enjoy the all-inclusive. We'll go do those things. But there's always going to be a meaning behind it. My wife and I made the decision that we will go and network with someone, even if it's just meeting someone that is a rescuer, that is in the trenches. Maybe we don't have any cash to give them, but we can go encourage them. We can go love them. We can network with them. We can put them in our network moving forward, introduce them to people, and just see kind of where God leads the conversation. But once my heart started breaking for these girls, dude, the identity of James Like real estate guy, which our identity should always be in God anyway.
Sure.
But we do adapt. James Like is a real estate guy. James Like is a hustler. James Like is a mover and shaker. I've heard all these things my whole life, and I appreciate those things. And I want everybody to still remember me with those things. But at the same time, I want to be known now as James Like the rescuer. Yeah. James Like the difference maker. James that's taken his life and his one life that he has, which by the way is the name of our 501c3, One Life. And he takes his one life and he's maximizing and he's changing other lives with it. That's what I want to be known as. So literally all that same energy that I used to build up these businesses and make all these millions of dollars, we're now turning over into focusing on missions. I still have my team that works for me. They're still doing business. Is it as much as it was when I was there? No. Is the flip business, it's building itself back up. Is it as much as whenever I was 100% focused on it? No.
Right.
But I lack nothing. The profits are up. Everything's fine with that. But we are totally focused on making a difference for those who cannot help themselves. I put this filter in place, man, because everyone comes to you wanting help. If they have the ability to help themselves, I'm not the guy to help them.
Right.
So I had to put in the filter with the help of the Holy Spirit to say, look, everything that I'm spending money on, that I'm giving money away to, is for someone who is in a position where they cannot help themselves. The widows, the little girls, there's little boys that are being trafficked. There's little boys that are being trafficked, and not only as little boys, but they're being given sex changes over in Thailand and made into little girls because they're cheaper to purchase a boy than it is to purchase a girl on the slave market. So there's so many of these things I've learned. And so all of our focus now, man, has been channeled into that. And so I don't want to get too far ahead of what we're doing, but that's my why. How many girls can I rescue